Drawing permanent maxillary right canine. First, you should divide the graph paper into 4 equal sections, as usual. We will draw the 5 aspects of permanent maxillary right canine. First, I will start with the labial aspect. The measurement I will need to draw the labial aspect are the length of the crown, which is 10 millimeters, multiplied by 4 equal 40. Length of root, which is 17 millimeters, multiplied by 4 equals 68 millimeters. Then I will need the mesodistal diameter of the crown and mesodistal diameter of the crown at cervix. First, I will mark the length of the crown, which is 10 millimeters or 40 after magnification. This is 10, 20, 30, and this is 40. The length of the root is 17 or 68 after magnification, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and this is 68. Then I should mark the mesodistal diameter of a crown at cervix, which is narrower than that of central incisor, maxillary central incisor. It's about 5.5 millimeters. After magnification, it will equal 22 millimeters. The width of the crown at cervix is narrowed to accommodate the narrowness of the root, which is slender mesodistally from the labial aspect. So I will mark 22 millimeters divided by 2 equals 11. 11 to the mesial and 11 to the distal. Don't forget to mark the sides. This is mesial and this is distal. Then we have the mesodistal diameter across the contact areas or at the greatest curvature. It's 7.5 millimeters. It's about 2 millimeters greater than the mesodistal diameter at cervix. After magnification, it equals 30 millimeters. So this dimension should be marked at the exact location of contact points, which is mesially located at the junction between the incisal and middle third, while distally it's located in the middle of the middle third of the crown. So we have different sides for contact areas to accommodate the different teeth on either side of the canine. Here it will make contact with the distal aspect of the lateral, while on this side it will make contact with the mesial aspect of maxillary first premolar. Therefore, the two contact areas are at different levels. To locate the exact position of contact points, I should divide the crown into 3 equal thirds vertically. So 40 divided by 3 equals 13.3 millimeters. We shall draw 13 millimeter for the incisal third and another 13 millimeter for the cervical or cervical third. And the remaining 14 millimeter will be devoted for the middle third. So we have 13 in the cervical third, 13 in the incisal third, or for the incisal third, and 14 for the middle third. As we mentioned, the mesial contact area is located at the junction of the incisal and middle thirds. So I will mark the dimension, which is, as we said, 30 divided by 2 is 15 millimeter. I will mark 15 millimeter here to the mesial. For the distal contact area, which is located in the middle of the middle third, I will mark 15 millimeters here. Now I shall draw the outline of the crown according to the information mentioned in the lecture. The mesial outline from the cervical line to the mesial contact point is slightly convex. So as we said earlier, the mesial outline is slightly convex. Then from the contact point, mesial contact point to the cusp, it will slant or it will be a straight line. It will slant toward the cusp tip. The cusp tip is located in center of the root, or in line with the long axis of the root, while the distal outline is slightly concave from the cervical line to the distal contact point. Around the distal contact point, it's convex. Then it becomes straight again toward the cusp with a slight tendency toward concavity. So I will start. I drew the mesial outline. This is the distal outline. It's slightly concave from the cervical line to the distal contact point. From the mesial contact point to the cusp tip, which is located in line with the center of the root, the mesial cusp slope is straight. Distal cusp slope is also straight with slight tendency toward concavity. Then I will draw the cervical line about 4 millimeters or 5 millimeters in depth. The curvature, as you can see, is less than that for the maxillary, central, and lateral incisors. Then I will draw the outline of the root. The mesial and distal outlines continue as straight lines along with the outline of the crown at cervix. Then in the apical third, it will become a pointed or a blunt or pointed apex with distal curvature. I will mark about 3 millimeters below the end of the root and 4 or 5 millimeters to the distal. These are the outlines of the root, mesial and distal. As you can see, approaching the apical third, the root begins to taper into pointed or blunt apex with a slight curvature toward the distal. So the main points, important points for drawing the maxillary canine are: the cusp tip is in center with the long axis of the root, the location of mesial and distal contact points, the mesial slope is shorter than distal slope, and the distal curvature of the apical end of the root. Moving to the lingual aspect, as usual, it is the reverse of the labial aspect. The only difference is the surface anatomy. So, this is the mesial contact point. This is the distal, which is located in the middle of the middle third, while the mesial is at the junction between incisal and middle thirds. The cusp tip is on line with the center of the root. The mesial cusp slope is shorter than distal cusp slope, and there is a distal curvature of the apical third of the root. As we said, the only difference is in surface anatomy. We have a large cingulum in upper canine or maxillary canine located in the cervical third. We have a strong and well-developed mesial and distal marginal ridges. We have the cusp ridges, mesial and distal. In addition, in the midline of the lingual aspect, there is a well-developed lingual ridge extending from the cingulum to the cusp tip. This is the lingual ridge. On both sides of the lingual ridge, we have shallow concavities representing the mesial and distal lingual fossae. Now moving to the mesial aspect, I drew the reference lines. As you know, for drawing proximal aspects, the mesial and distal, we need the labiolingual dimensions instead of mesiodistal dimensions. So the labiolingual diameter of the canine at cervix is 7 millimeters. After magnification equals 28. And the labiolingual diameter of the crown, that's to say, across the crest of curvatures, both labially and lingually, is 8 mm after magnification equals 32 millimeters. The main points in drawing the proximal aspect of upper canine is that the cusp tip is located labial to the long axis of the root. This is the long axis of the root. As you can see, the cusp tip is located labial to this line. Unlike the maxillary central and lateral, which is located, the incisal edge is located in line with the center of the root. It's about 1 mm labial to this line. So after magnification, the 1 mm is 4 mm. Also, the canine has a strong incisional part. As you can see, this is the incisional part. It's heavy and strong due to the presence of the prominent cusp. It's about 1.5 mm in width, which equals 6 mm after magnification. And the final point, is the position of the crest of curvatures, both labially and lingually, is located about 1/4 the distance between the cusp tip and the cervical line, 1/4. I will mark the labiolingual dimension at cervix, which is 28, divided by 2 equals 14. So I will mark 14 to the labial and 14 to the lingual. Sorry, this is the point. So this is the labial and this is the lingual. Then at the crest of curvature, which as we mentioned earlier, is about 1/4 the distance between the cervical line and the cusp tip. This is 1/4. 10 millimeters equals 1/4. The dimension is 8 or 32 after magnification, divided by 2 equals 16. So 16 to the lingual and 16 to the labial. Then I will draw the outlines. This point will be convex, just like this is the point, which is marked 4 mm labial to the long axis. This is the point of the cusp tip, which is 4 mm after magnification, 4 mm in front of the long axis of the root. This is the cingulum. As we said, the incisional part is wide, extending about 6 millimeters or 1.5 in actual dimension, but here it will equal 6 millimeters. Then I will draw the mesial marginal ridge, which is regular and uniform in shape. This is the mesial marginal ridge. The root is outlined as a rounded cone with tapered or blunt apex. This is the apex. I will start drawing almost straight lines, labially and lingually. Then about half the length of the root, it will start to taper. Most of the tapering occurs from the lingual aspect or the lingual side. Then we have to draw the curvature of the cervical line, which is 2.5. After magnification, it is 10 millimeters, which equals 1/4 the distance of the length of the crown. 1/4 the length of the crown. This is the curvature of the cervical line. For the distal aspect, the same procedure is followed. Also, the cusp tip is in front of or labial to the long axis of the root. The only difference is that the distal marginal ridge is heavier and more irregular in shape. It will be drawn like this. It has an irregular shape. Then the curvature of the cervical line is less. It's 1.5 after magnification equals 6. So I will mark here 6 millimeters and draw the curvature of the cervical line on the distal aspect. Finally, I will draw the incisal aspect. As you can see, the incisal aspect is represented by a series of arcs. It's diamond in shape. The mesial aspect has the largest labiolingual dimension. The distal aspect seems as if it was stretched out to make contact with the adjacent maxillary first premolar. The cusp line or cusp ridges are labial to the line that bisects the tooth mesiodistally and is mesial to the line that bisects the crown labiolingually. So here the cusp tip is in center with the line that bisects the root, while from the incisal aspect we are speaking in relation to the crown. So the cusp tip is mesial to the line that bisects the crown. The arcs are on the mesial aspect, on the mesiolabial aspects, is about quarter a circle. On the mesiolingual aspects is convex. On the distolingual aspect, slightly concave, and on the distolabial aspect is more concave. So I will first mark the dimensions that we need for drawing the incisal aspects, which are the mesiodistal diameter of a crown and labiolingual diameter of crown, 30 and 32. So for the mesiodistal diameter, I will mark 15 on the mesial and 15 on the distal. This is mesial and this is distal. And the labiolingual dimension, which is 32, I will mark 16 to the labial and 16 to the lingual. This is labial. Then I will draw the box as usual. As you can see, unlike the maxillary central and lateral incisor, the labiolingual dimension is slightly greater than mesiodistal dimension. So as we said, the mesiolabial aspect is almost quarter a circle. Mesiolingual is convex. This is presenting the cingulum. The mesiolabial is concave. The distolingual is slightly concave. Slightly concave. This is the cingulum in the cervical third. These are the strong, well-developed marginal ridges. As we said, the cusp ridges are located labial to the center, and the cusp tip is slightly mesial to the center of the crown, not the root, the center of the crown.